It used to be so simple. You were a boy or you were a girl. But that was then. And this,
The next battleground, transgender rights.
is now.
Born both a boy and a girl.
As we find ourselves in the midst of a gender revolution.
Welcome to Silence Kills. We'll be discussing scientific evidence for a creator and other controversial topics. Here's our hosts, Tom Taylor, Steve Bentley, and Climie.
Hi, welcome to Silence Kills. I'm Climie. This is Steve Bentley. This is Tom Taylor. And hey, Steve, why don't you start us off here?
Well, in this episode, what we're looking at is we saw an interview with Katie Couric, and she was talking about this gender identity documentary she did, and it got us to thinking and talking, and we really wanted to dig into this concept, and not just about gender identity, but the this concept of I identify as, and what is my truth, and so we really wanted to talk about that and dig into it a little bit today. So, Sim, you got anything you want to start off on that?
Well, a while ago, the Lord dealt with me about starting Silence Kills, and one of the issues was identity. There's an identity issue that I think people deal with one time or another in their life. You know, who am I? And when you start getting into the Bible, you find out what you are and who you are in Christ Jesus. And I see an attack happening upon people's minds of who am I? And that is a big topic that I think as Christians and as me, I can only speak for myself, that we have to walk with gentleness and be compassionate about because of the gender identity issue that's going on. What I am as a spirit, according to the Bible, and the Bible is the inspired word of God, it is the truth, that I am a spirit. Who I am is Climie, who's in Christ Jesus. I'm the righteousness of God. But if you don't have a firm grip on what you are, and then which walks right into what you were talking about earlier before we started about, you know, am I going to identify myself with what I feel? So if you want to take it from there, what you were talking about earlier.
Well, I just think we use this term a slippery slope, and I think the whole issue with a society, if we're going to let people decide what they are or who they are based on their feelings, then we're just opening the door up for nonsense, right? If I say I identify as the president of the local bank down the road, I can walk in now and just open up the vault and take the money out because that's who I feel I am. It would be absurd, and everybody would look at it, you being ridiculous. Truth has nothing to do with our feelings. Unfortunately, we're in a society today where relativism is being pushed to where whatever you feel is the truth for you. But that doesn't work. It doesn't work across the board. If I feel like I'm a senior today and I'm going to go through McDonald's and get the senior rate on my coffee, who's to tell me that that's not true?
Right.
This is who I feel I am today. Now, some people may think I'm just being silly like this, but I think it lines up with what's going on in our society today. Feelings don't dictate truth, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And you can take a more concrete example on that is that, I identify as a bird, so I jump off a building and try to fly away.
Right.
It's not going to work because there is scientific fact, there is biological fact, there is
physics,
truth that's going to impede on my truth. Right. And that's where, and that sets you up for failure. And so that's the concern that we have when we're dealing with this and wanting to identify as this or identify as that, or trying to take control of my identity and say those things. Like, yeah, that's great. You can say that and you can feel like that, but that doesn't make it true. Right. And if you're not living in the truth, you're living in a lie. And it really, it used to be. I don't know what the Psychiatric Association says about it now. They used to be considered mentally unhealthy,
right?
That if you would deny truth, and so I don't know, but I know that in practice, when you deny truth and reality, I don't see people that are living in peace with that. You start losing harmony within yourself, and that's the concern on this is this relativism that this is my truth, that might be your truth, and who are you to say this and that, and it winds up breaking down any kind of discourse you can have on anything, because I can just redefine and change things. And there's a little comic strip that was talking about that kind of illustrated this, and there's this guy, the old guy with a beard, talking to this young lady, and he's talking about how he's anti-abortion and back and forth a little bit, and the girl says something about, well, you have no right to say anything about this. This is a woman's issue. And he said, did you just assume my identity? You just assume my gender?
Right.
That just ruins the discourse.
Right.
Now I can't even talk about it because you can shut down the conversation. So basically, it's like I'm going to be in whatever place I want to be, and you have no right to say anything about it. I think there is a question and an issue on that where often people have gotten offended about somebody else taking some stance. I identify as. And I think, as a church representing the body of Christ, I picture Christ running into that, and I think he would cut right through. He would have that way where he cut right through to the heart of the matter, and he would be so loving. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't be condemning.
Right.
But he would cut right through the heart of the matter. He's like, you're looking for control in your life, or you're looking for identity in your life, or you're looking to hide, or whatever. He would find that thing, and he would pinpoint it, and he wouldn't condemn whatever had happened in the past or anything. He would love them, right? And I think it's important. That's how we deal with it. But we still can't just go, it's okay, because it's not true. And we have to, any debate, any conversation, there has to be a basis of truth. That's your baseline that we're operating on. So it becomes a very difficult subject to even talk about.
It does, yeah.
Because if I disagree with you, how dare you disagree with me? That's my truth. How dare you disagree with me, disagree with you, because that's my truth. Right.
Right. I was sitting here, and I believe the Spirit Lord just spoke to my spirit about is what's going on is people are self-creating their identity. I go by what God says about my identity. The Bible tells me exactly what I am. I am a spirit. I have a soul, which is mind, will, and emotions, desires, and then I have a body. I like what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:27. I'm just going to paraphrase it. But I discipline my body. He makes a distinction that he doesn't say I am a body and I discipline myself. He goes, but I discipline my body. I bring it into subjection. And so that clarifies what you are. You are a spirit. To go off without the truth, you can begin to create your own identity based on what you feel. Like when you talked about, I feel like a banker. I mean, how many times have any of us who have jobs have felt like, man, I wish I was the boss because this is the way I would do it. I mean, what would happen if I walked into work this Monday and said, I feel like I'm the boss?
Yeah.
I would be fired.
Right.
If the owners of the company were walking around in the department where I work at, and I said, I feel that I'm the owner of this company. You're fired, and I'm going to promote my. They would look at me like you're fired, and you probably need to go get some help, and you probably should take a drug test because you're acting like you're on drugs, sir. So, and I know some people might find this, and I pray that you don't find this offensive, but without the truth, you can't see the truth. It's dangerous, So, anybody else? Got anything to say?
Well, I'll throw this into the mix here. My son showed some interest in getting some tattoos, a few years ago. My daughter, has got her nose pierced and different things. And I wanted to express to them so that they knew that don't do those things because you feel somehow this is going to become your identity. My tattoos are going to be who I am, or my piercings are going to identify who I am. Your identity has to be found in God and Christ. That's the perfect identity.
Exactly.
I just didn't want them to think that because you do certain things to your body that this now identifies you. You know what I mean? And it's not coming against the tattoo or the piercing. It just comes the mindset. Don't think that you're creating your identity with your tattoos or your piercings. Find that in Christ.
Right.
Find that in God.
That's powerful. Steve, you have anything to say?
Well, dealing with counseling and stuff too, when we're counseling somebody, we're always trying to get down to the truth. And the only time I can move somebody forward when we're dealing with counseling is if they'll accept truth. If they'll go, yeah, this is the truth. This is what really happened. And now from there, what are we going to do? And that's the difficulty in that when people are not living in truth, you can't help them. And they can't help themselves. They're off in a fantasy land rather than dealing with reality. And that's one of the things we talk about is there's something that happened, and then the story we tell about it. And people get very caught up in that story we tell about things rather than here's what happened, and that's the truth. And I have a choice what story I'm going to create around that. I have a choice how I'm going to respond to that, what I'm going to do. And I just think it's so important that we stick to what the truth is. And that's where you talk about, going there, I'll be the boss, I'll be the owner. And, of course that's not going to work. People are like, that's just silly because we all know the truth. Oh, wait. And that's the difficulty in there. We all know the truth. And choosing your own identity, gender-wise, racially, we have that one woman that identifies as a black woman, but she's a white woman, and you get all this stuff going on, the slippery slope. Where does it end?
Right.
And where our premise and our contention is that the truth is what's really important, and not even though to say that, because I think this is one of the struggles in the gender identity issue is not to say that your chromosomes create your identity. Just because you're a male, that doesn't create your identity. That's just an element of your physical being. But to deny it or to change it or to try to redefine it, it's still the maleness. Now, the story you say about that, being a male means you love football. Well, no, it might mean you love cooking. It might mean, and actually it doesn't mean any of that. It just means loving football and loving cooking has nothing to do with being a male or female.
No, it doesn't.
And that's where I think some of the struggle is that there's been definitions put on that physical gender identity that people are rebelling against, but by rebelling against that and transforming themselves, they're actually embracing what people are defining gender as. Maleness and femaleness is a biological chromosomal setup, and to deny it is to live a lie. To let yourself be defined by how society defines what those roles are, no, that's not what we're contending. I think definitely, we've got the people come in different places on all this, but the military has opened up for females in all combat positions now, and so you start looking at those kind of things, and some people have an issue with that, and some don't. But it really those opportunities to say that you can't is because of what your physical biological gender is missing. And one of the things they found in the military, what they're saying is, if you can meet the physical requirements that this job takes, you qualify. And so when you start looking at that, you start getting into the truth of it. And I've seen the Israeli army has done that for a long time, and they do a great job, a great example of it. But so, I think that's what some people are rebelling against, struggling with on the gender identity issue. But my bigger concern is we're doing this across everything. We're doing this relative truth. And it makes it where it's impossible to even discuss anything, because when you start doing these, well, you just assume my gender. Well, you can't deny my truth, and then we talk about it, and I'm like, well, my truth is denying your truth. So how do you deny my truth of denying your truth? Right. It's like, and we just can't talk about anything. Yeah, it shuts down conversation. The only way you can have real engagement and conversation and growth and learning and challenge is if there's a truth.
And the Bible talks about men will suppress the truth. And that's what we're doing almost as a society right now, is we're suppressing the truth, right? Yeah. I just want to say really quick, change it up a little bit. I think one of the things that we've seen in the Katie Couric interview is that they start talking about the brain. Well, we've identified the location within the brain where these thoughts of gender identification occur, okay? And I say to myself, well, so what? I mean, you can identify a spot in the brain where Charles Manson had his thoughts of murdering people. It doesn't mean that, okay, it's now okay because we found the location where a thought process takes place. It's just silly that they would portray this as scientifically we found the gender spot in your brain. Well, so what? Everything that we think about's in there somewhere. We can identify where it's located at. It doesn't mean that somehow it's okay now.
Right. Did you want to add on to that? Or?
Well, just that's one of the things they do a lot with dealing with addiction, and we do a lot of addiction recovery stuff at our church, and they'll try and look for that, like, well, maybe there's a gene for this addiction, and that's why it's happening. Doesn't matter why it's happening; it doesn't work.
Right.
And so that's what we have to address.
Right.
And that's a lot of times when I talk to people, I'll think like, let's take the question why right out of the picture, because that's the story you create about it, and let's just look at what's happening. Is that working? Can we change it? And then move forward on that. And
I'm glad you brought that up, because we only seen a little bit part of the interview, and then I went further in the interview, and they really didn't. It was just an interview about the documentary. They didn't stay on that documentary very long. It turned into something else. But I'm a spirit. I'm not my brain. I'm not my mind or my soul. I'm not a physical brain. I mean, without truth comes a lie and confusion, and that's what we see in society today, is a mass confusion. Well, I identify with this and I identify with that. Now, I do want to address the issue also. What happens if, and I'm going to discuss about like a young boy being 4 or 5 years old. What happens if the 4 or 5-year-old boy says, well, I'm a girl? And then the parents go along with it, and sometime in the age, wherever they go through the transition, and becomes a girl, and then goes off and connects with a man. And I mean, now we're starting some possibly a domino effect of situations that can get into a real mess. You know, I've just heard, that was Mark Dice was talking about this guy that's a media analysis, but not only him, but I can't remember who else is that. It's going down now that I can't remember if it's a behavioral therapist or psychologist or I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're now considering it child abuse. You know, that you're going along with this, with what your child thinks. You know, okay, well, I'm a young boy, but I feel like I'm a woman, a girl. I personally think it is child abuse. I think that you are enabling your child to walk in a lie.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in our society that say it's child abuse if you don't allow them to go on the path that they want. That's how I would see society looking at that.
That's crazy, because then if I were to have kids and my child goes, well, Dad, I believe this is my car. I'm 12 years old. I believe I can reach the pedals, and it's my car now, and I will take the keys when you're not looking. And
on the other side of it, dealing with this child abuse thing is that I know of several cases of a young child identifying as a different gender, and in those cases, it was that child had been molested, and they felt safer and more in control. If I am this gender instead, now I can separate from that. I can, that is not a dealing with truth. It's a coping mechanism, and it's not a healthy coping mechanism. And that's where you come in that struggle. Yeah, you're dealing with kids. You start fostering this is okay. Just go ahead and do this with your kid, and your kid's getting deeper and deeper into psychosis because they're not dealing with truth. They're dealing with fantasy and calling it truth, and that's a mental illness. That doesn't work. You know, that old definition of insanity. You know, they say keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting to get a different result, is because that doesn't line up with truth. Insanity is basically you don't accept truth, and so when you get into that, you're really leading this kid down a path that my solutions to my problems. I'll just change my identity. I'll just get rid of this thing. I'll just chase after this feeling and that thing. And like that doesn't fix anything. You know, and it's also embracing that the way you're feeling. If you're a boy and you have these feelings, it means you're a girl. Well, you just embraced that gender role thing. So this kid's going, well, I really like playing with dolls, and I just really feel like a girl. Like, no, you probably have feelings and things that you identify as being girl, but that doesn't mean they're girl. I mean, all these different. Anytime you play that game where you try and make a gender role, it's like, well, cooking's a gender. You know, that's for women. They do the cooking. Well, you know, what about chefs? What about
Right.
Other people cook, and and you start making this gender role and this and that. Oh, here's a biological gender role: women produce babies.
That's perfect.
That's a biological gender role, but there's very few biological gender roles. Biological gender role: the male contributes the sperm, and the woman contributes the egg, and those are some biological gender roles, and those don't change when you get gender reassignment. Yeah. And so I think you're just buying into a thing that's not the truth, and I'm not angry with somebody that does that. I love them where they're at, and we deal with a lot of people in those different places. It's not a place of truth, and that's not going to help them. And for us to give into that, and this is where everything we do here, we're talking about the silent skills. It'd be a lot easier to just not say anything about this,
right?
But being silent about these things is not giving an opportunity for somebody to hear something that maybe they do. And that's my hope, my prayer in these conversations. And this is probably one of the most serious ones we've had, where it's really impacting people right where they live.
Right.
Is my hope and my prayer is that we're speaking something that helps you maybe look at it a little different, find a little bit of hope, to trust in Jesus and move forward from there, because it's not up to us to define who you are and where you're at and everything. We just want to point you to the truth. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And we want to point you to the truth, and I think that's the most important thing. Your gender identity is not going to be your salvation or your damnation. Jesus is your salvation, and so. But this is such a close heart issue that it's painful. I feel for people that are struggling.
Yeah. I think they're tormented.
Yeah,
I really do, because even though I've known I was a male, I've never had that issue. I've dealt with identity crisis for years. When I was when you talked about tattoos, I've never had a tattoo, but I could relate to that. It's like I remember when I was young, and because I wasn't a very secure person, I identified with people who I didn't identify with jocks. Stereotype. I didn't identify with people that back then were called jocks. A lot of things are different now. That when I was younger, there was the burnouts, there was the partiers, there was the jocks, and there was the geeks, and there's just the nerds, and that's stereotypes. That's an identity crisis going on there. And I didn't do drugs, but I liked metal music, so I grew long hair to become a long hair, a metalhead. I hung out with people who partied, but I didn't party. I didn't go around smoking dope, getting drunk, but I hung out with those people. I liked metal music. I was in a metal band, and I identified myself as a long hair metalhead. And it's like I said, it's taken me years. Even after I got saved, it's taken me years. Who is Sim Climie? And I'm learning, and this is for anybody. I believe when someone gets saved, they need to find out what they are and who they are. And I think it takes time by getting in the Word. I like what Paul said about being rooted and built up in Christ Jesus in Colossians 2:7. Even though he's talking about a different scenario going on with the Christians in Colossae, but it's important to be rooted and grounded in the truth. And Jesus is the truth, and Jesus says what I am.
Yeah.
And when you come from that point of view, it's going to set you free, because He is the truth that'll make you free from the lies of the devil. And there are people who are being tormented. I believe there's a spirit of fear behind it. I believe there's a lying spirit behind it. I believe there's a spirit of rejection behind it, because if someone's not open to the truth, like Pastor Steve was saying, what happens even if you say it gently, it's very possible there's a demonic spirit behind it. Oh, they're rejecting you. All of a sudden they're like, they're parakeeting. Oh, they're rejecting me. Let's protest. Let's do this. Let's do that. No, we're not rejecting you. We love you. We're just rejecting the lie of the devil that you believe. And I'm not saying it like, you believe. No. Trust me. I know what it's like to deal with an identity crisis in a different area, but I haven't dealt with it in the gender area, and I don't treat what you're doing or what I've gone through better than any other. It's an identity crisis that can only be solved through what God says, and what He says is the truth to make you free.
Amen.
What praise, what praise, what praise.